Welcome to this inspiring story of courage, love, and hope. Follow John's journey as he turns hardship into strength, honoring his mother's faith in him and lifting up others through the same light she once gave him. My name is John. I grew up with very little. I lived with my mother in a small house. My father had died before I was born because of an accident at work. My mom raised me alone. Her hands were strong, and her eyes were tired but still bright. She told me words every night that stayed with me. She would say softly, "I only have you, but I know you are strong. I trust you." I heard those words before sleeping. I held her hand and closed my eyes. We had new toys, new noisy visitors, new big TV, new shiny screens, just books, hope, her warm smile, and a small dream to stand tall. The house was old. The roof leaked. The floor was cold. The walls were thin. She cooked with care and worked all day. She cleaned other people's homes. She came home late with tired feet and worn shoes, but she still carried grace. She never cried in front of me. She hid her pain and showed me only love. She brought me books from the houses she cleaned. Some were torn and old, some were treasures. I read them all with quiet happiness. I found new worlds in those pages and felt free. When I felt sad, she would say, "Be first in class. I will handle the rest." I agreed and did my best. I studied at night and wrote carefully. At school, I sat in the second row. My shirt was torn, and my shoes were worn. Other boys laughed at me and called me names. I kept my eyes forward and stayed silent. I remembered her voice in my mind. "Stand tall and lift your chin." So I kept calm, finished my work, and walked home with steady steps. We shared one bed and ate one simple meal. We saved every coin and wasted nothing. She gave me love, light, peace, and her time. When I did well, I saw her eyes shine with pride. No gift could ever match her love. No words could fully thank her. When I was 10, I wrote her a note and left it by her cup of tea. I wrote, "Dear Mom, I will make you proud. I will not stop. I will not fall." She read it, held my face, kissed my head, and hugged me tight. She told me, "My son, I have no doubt. Take your time. Do your best." I cleaned the floor, washed my clothes, fixed the door, and stayed awake. She taught me to work hard, never steal, never lie. She told me, "Be kind to everyone, big or small. Be honest and fair. That is true success." I listened and took it all in. I learned to grow and keep my promises. At night, I looked at the stars from our old roof. I dreamed of something more, not gold or fame, not shiny cars, but just a gift to make her smile. I pictured my life as a mountain path and told myself, "Don't stop. You are her hope. You are her dream." When I was 12, I kept studying hard. I cleaned the house and helped my mom. She woke me before sunrise, packed my lunch, kissed my head, and told me, "Go and do your best. I still trust you." Her words stayed close to my heart like secret gold. Our house was small, but full of love. The walls were old. The roof was thin. I read at night by candlelight. The shadows danced across my book. The wind made the windows shake, but I pulled my coat tighter and stayed still. Outside was cold, but I felt fire inside, not from the lamp, but from my will. At school, I sat in front and raised my hand every day. I knew the answers. My clothes were old, my shoes were torn, but I still smiled and faced the class. The teacher saw how hard I worked. She gave me books and hope. I took them home, read every page, wrote notes, and learned with joy. The other boys teased me, pointed at my shoes, and laughed. I didn't shout or fight. I kept calm and walked away. I heard my mom's voice inside my head. "You are not less. You are enough." So I stood tall, even when it hurt. I wiped my tears and stayed strong. I helped my mom when she came home. I made her tea and cleaned the floor. She worked so hard for every coin. She washed 10 rooms and scrubbed 10 doors. She never cried in front of me, but I saw her truth. Her hands were red, her back hurt, but she still smiled and hugged me. She once told me, "When I was young, I dreamed of school, but life said no." Her voice was soft, her eyes far away. She held my hand and said, "But now you read and write, so dream for me and move forward." I nodded and made a promise to make her proud. One day at school, I won a prize for top marks. The crowd clapped. I looked around, but she wasn't there. I felt a tear on my hand, but outside, she stood waiting with tired feet and happy eyes. She hugged me and said, "You did it!" in a soft voice full of light. We walked home on the long road under the clear stars. I told her about my test. She nodded and smiled with pride. She made us bread and soup, sang a song, and kissed my cheek. We shared one bowl and laughed a little before sleeping. In my dreams, I saw her young again, without pain, strong and happy. I saw her smile, free from work and hard days. I wanted more for her, not for me, to let her rest, to give her peace and joy. When I turned 15, life got harder. We had less food, and some help was lost. Heavy rain came, and the roof leaked. The nights were cold, and the days felt long. But we kept going. We did not give up. We said our prayers and shared what bread we had. She reminded me, "I only have you." And I answered, "And I have you." At 16, I found a job cleaning a shop 3 days each week. The man there was kind, but the pay was low. I didn't mind because we needed it. I gave all the money to my mom. She said, "It's too much." But I told her, "It's okay." I did not buy snacks. I walked to school. I saved every coin and watched her smile. She was proud of me, but I saw how tired she looked. Her eyes lost their light. She worked too much. Her hands hurt, and she barely slept. I asked her once to rest, but she shook her head, kissed me, and said softly, "When you succeed, then I will rest." College seemed far, but I applied anyway. My grades were good, and I passed the entrance test. I packed my bag and hugged her tightly. She held me close, did not speak, but her eyes were red with pride. She waved as the bus left. My heart felt full, and I whispered, "I will make you proud." The dorm was small, with gray walls and a hard bed. The nights were long, but I stayed strong. I cleaned, cooked, read every book, and passed every term. My clothes were old, my shoes had holes, but I kept walking, kept trying. Some people laughed at me for how I dressed, but I looked straight ahead and did not stop. At night, I worked in a cafe. I served tea and cleaned trays. I burned my hand, slipped once, but stood back up and said, "I'm okay." Sometimes I felt I would break apart. My back hurt, my eyes burned, but then I would hear her voice in my mind, clear and gentle, telling me, "Be proud, my son, not of grades, but of your heart." So I worked harder and studied more. I found a way to manage it all. I washed plates, then read notes, drank cold tea, and fought to stay awake. I missed her laugh and her food, but in my dreams, I heard her hum. She sometimes sent bread and a loving note. She wrote, "You are my joy. You are my son." I kept those notes near my bed and read them when I felt weak. They gave me hope and strength to rise each day. The years went quickly. I passed all my classes and reached my last year, feeling strong. But one day, I fell outside my door. I could not stand. My hands were cold. They brought me inside and called my mom. She came the next day, wearing her scarf. She saw me weak, touched my head, and whispered, "This is not the way." She cried a little, but then smiled and said, "Don't hurt yourself to build my dream. You are enough just as you are. I don't need gold. I need you healthy." Her hands were warm. Her face was soft. She gave me food and wiped my tears. That night, I cried and made a promise. I would finish, but not with pain. I took more breaks, slept every night, ate full meals, walked in the sun, called her more, and laughed again. I made friends and found peace. I passed my final test. I wore a suit, shook hands, and stood with pride as they called my name. My heart raced. I looked at her. She sat there proud, wearing a blue dress, her eyes bright and hands calm. I gave my speech, saying, "This is for her who gave me wings. She raised me strong with only her hands. She gave me light when I had none." All the room went silent, then clapped, but I only looked at her face. After graduation, I found a job that paid well. I felt new and proud. I bought a watch and gave it to her. She laughed and said, "You silly boy, I don't need this." I told her, "I know, but you need time because you gave everything and kept nothing." That night, we ate together like old times. She made simple food, and I shared stories from college. We laughed a lot. She looked at me with calm pride, and I told her, "You gave me life not once but twice, and made me more than I ever thought I could be." When I moved for work, the city was busy and fast. I found a small room, not great, but mine. I missed her, called often, told her everything. She sent food and love, and I sent her money so she could rest. The job was hard with long hours, but I was new and needed to prove myself. I learned fast, stayed late, asked questions, took every task. My boss was strict, but watched me closely. He liked my work and trusted me with more. I kept doing my best, smiling each day, holding my pride. Some nights were lonely in that small room. The city was loud. I cooked simple food, read old books, missed her hugs and tea. But every time I felt weak, I heard her voice in my heart. "You are my boy, my strength. I trust you. I see your fire." A year later, I got a raise, a better seat, and better pay. I bought new shoes, cleaned my room, and hung her photo by my bed. I sent her more money. She smiled and said, "Enough." But I told her, "Not yet. You gave me life. You gave me all. Now it's your time to rest in peace." One day, I found out my boss had left. The team was big and had no leader. They looked around, unsure. I stepped forward and said, "I can try." They gave me time and space. I made a plan and worked all night. I cleaned up the problems, called the team together, and gave them hope. I showed them a path. My plan worked. The client stayed happy. The board was pleased. They called me in, shook my hand, thanked me, and gave me their trust. I felt so proud. They offered me a higher role, a bigger desk, and more respect. I accepted. I put on a tie and told my mom. She cried, happy tears. She came to see me, taking the train, wearing new shoes I had bought her. She saw my apartment and my room. She looked around and said, "You left as a boy, but now I see a kind man." She held my hand and told me softly, "I feel peace. My child is home." We went to eat. I chose a place. She smiled wide, holding her spoon, and talked gently about my childhood. She told me, "You shined even when skies were dark." I laughed with her, feeling light. The food was warm, and the night was good. She looked at me kindly and said, "You didn't break, you just bent." Years passed. I stayed in the job, built my name, and helped younger staff. I trained new workers, gave them time, and shared my story. Some called me wise, some called me boss, and some called me friend. I kept my heart steady and the same. Every night, I called my mom. She told me her stories, and I told her mine. Then one morning, the phone rang. The voice was quiet and soft. My mother had fallen and was taken quickly to the hospital. She had hit her head and couldn't speak. I ran without thinking, leaving my bag behind. I took the train and didn't sleep. I found her lying there, calm, eyes closed, skin cold. She held my hand one last time. Her breathing was slow, lips dry. She looked at me with a faint smile, then closed her eyes for good. The room was still and quiet. I kissed her head and said nothing. I sat alone beside her bed and cried until I had no strength left. The days felt heavy. I planned everything and brought her back to her hometown. We buried her under a tree. The sun was warm, the wind soft. I stood alone and spoke quietly. You were my world. You were my son. I hope you saw how far I came, built by your love. After she was gone, life felt empty. The days were slow, the nights cold. I went back to work and tried my best. I smiled less and spoke softer. I kept her photo on my desk, touching it before I began each day. I kept her voice in my heart. My team grew strong, the company did well, new deals came, and people relied on me. I gave them time and care, but in my heart, I missed her laugh, her voice, her tea. Still, I worked hard every day, building her name through my efforts. One young man came to work there, named Sam. He worked hard, stayed late, and had big dreams. He lived alone, looked thin, and his eyes reminded me of myself years ago. His shoes were worn, and he hid his pain, but he showed up with pride. I took his hand, gave him food, and shared my story. I gave him hope and told him, "Keep going." He nodded and wiped away a tear. Each week we talked, and he asked for advice. I gave him all I could. He once told me, "You saved my life." I smiled and said, "No, you saved your own." Helping him lifted my heart. I saw my mom's kindness in what I did. She had once done the same, giving me strength. 1 year later, I started a center. I named it Hope. It was a place for kids to learn, for young people to eat, and for dreams to grow. I told the newspapers, "This is for her." I showed them her picture and her smile. I said, "She cleaned floors so I could rise. Now, I give back so others can climb." People came and cried. They saw the walls filled with photos and her words framed in gold. "I trust in you," was written big. They asked about her, and I shared her story. They thanked me for honoring her. Every week, I sat with the kids, listened to their dreams, and helped fix their goals. I saw girls with books and boys with old shoes. I told them, I had no father, no toys, only her. But look at me. You have your mind and your dreams. One little girl came close. She had a bright smile and said, "My mom works all the time cleaning houses, but hugs me tight." I bent down, held her hand, and saw my past in her eyes. I told her, "You are like me. You will fly far. Your mom is proud, and you shine with light." More people supported us. More children came. The center grew bigger. We built more rooms and added more books. We filled shelves with hope and joy, hung up quotes, and shared more stories. Every part was honest. Every part was true. The world was wide, but they now knew their light could shine anywhere. Then, one cold night, I sat by myself. I made her favorite tea. I looked up at the stars. I picked up a book, and on the first page I wrote her name. I wrote down her love. I made a small prayer. "Dear Mom, please hear me. Your son is safe. Your son is proud. I miss you so much. But now I share the same warm light you once gave me." Years moved on. The kids grew tall. They left the center and went to their schools. Some called me dad. Some called me teacher. But all of them spoke to me with love. Sam returned wearing a coat and tie. He had a good job and led his own team. He told me, "I give because you gave first. You helped me grow. You taught me to care." One summer day, I got a card with gentle words and tears hidden in it. It came from a girl from the center. She wrote about her dreams and drew the sky. She said, "Dear sir, you changed my life. You saw my light when no one else did. You gave me books. You gave me your time. You gave me dreams. I now follow." I smiled so wide and closed my eyes. I saw my mother there. I saw her proud. She held my hand like she did long ago. She told me, "My boy, you did it right. You turned your pain into love. You built a path for others. You made me more proud than you can know. And I am here in every smile." I stood quietly and looked ahead. The world was big, but I felt calm. Her voice stayed alive in every word, in every hug, in every child. I built my life with tears and hope, from dust and dreams, from her strong hands. And now I give, not just to prove something, but to show I never stopped. A new year began, and the center was busy. More children came, their faces full of hope. I welcomed them with kind words and warm. Some were shy and scared, but slowly they learned to smile again. I saw pieces of myself in each of them, the same hunger for a better life. One afternoon, a young boy came in with torn clothes and worried eyes. He said his name was Luis. He had lost his father, and his mother worked all night to feed him. I felt my heart pulled tight, remembering my own past. I told him, "You are safe here." He nodded, but did not speak. Each day, Luis stayed a little longer. He read books, helped sweep the floor, and asked about my story. One day, he asked, "Do you think I can change too?" I smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, you can," I said. "You are stronger than you know." Weeks passed, and Luis showed courage. He helped other kids with their lessons. He started to laugh more. One day, he brought his mother to the center. She looked tired, but smiled with respect. She thanked me with tears in her eyes. I told her, "You raised a good boy." She held my hand and squeezed it tight. The center felt alive, with children running, learning, and dreaming. Their noise was like music, a sign of hope. I hung more photos on the walls, more words of encouragement, more drawings made by the children. Sometimes, at night, I would stand in the doorway and watch them read and play. I would close my eyes and whisper, "Thank you, Mom," because I knew her spirit was in every lesson, in every hug, in every kind word I shared. Time moved on, but I never forgot where I came from. I kept her memory alive in the center. The kids learned to clean their shoes, to say thank you, to dream without shame. Luis grew stronger each day. He said he wanted to become a teacher one day. I promised to help him reach that dream, and deep in my heart, I felt calm, because I knew that her love was still growing, through me, through them, through every little light that refused to fade. Seasons changed again, and the center kept growing. New kids came with new stories, and every one of them carried silent pain. I listened to them one by one, just like my mother once listened to me. I gave them warm food, books, and a quiet place to rest. Luis worked hard in school. He showed me his marks with pride. I cheered for him each time. His mother came more often too. She helped in the kitchen, served soup to other children, and laughed a little more. I could see the weight leaving her shoulders, bit by bit. One rainy evening, Louise brought me a gift. It was a small drawing of a house with flowers outside. He said, "One day, I want to build this for my mom. I smiled and held back my tears. I told him, "You can do it. Just keep going." The center became known across the city. People came to see what we built. They offered help. Some brought clothes. Some brought toys. Some came to teach lessons. I made sure everyone felt welcome. Every night, before I closed the doors, I would look at the walls full of drawings, kind letters, and my mother's picture. I felt her close, like she was standing beside me. Some kids started to call me Papa in soft voices. At first, it made me shy, but then I understood. They saw me as family, just as I had once needed someone to stand by me. One weekend, Luis and I planted flowers in front of the center. The ground was hard, but we worked until it was done. When the first flowers bloomed, Luis shouted, "Look, they stand tall!" I nodded. "Just like you," I said. At night, I wrote in my notebook again. I wrote, "Hope grows here." And I knew it was true. Months went by, and more children came. Some were scared at first. Some were quiet and kept their heads low. I always gave them time. I learned to wait until they were ready to talk. One girl named Sophia barely spoke for many days. She hid behind her hair and looked at the ground. I sat with her after lunch and asked simple questions. Slowly, she shared her story. Her father was gone, and her mother worked all night. Sophia was alone most days. I told her she was safe here. I showed her the books and colors in the center. She started drawing little birds. Each day, her birds flew higher on the page. One day, she smiled at me for the first time. It was small but strong. The center became full of life. Girls learned to braid hair, boys played ball outside, and volunteers taught songs and poems. I walked through the rooms with a calm heart. One evening, I sat with Sam. He was taller now, working in an office, but still helping me on weekends. He said, "We should open another place in the south part of the city. They need hope there, too." I looked at him, surprised. He was right. My heart felt a spark again. I told him, "We will try." We planned together, looking for old buildings that could be made new. I felt proud of Sam. He had grown strong and kind. I saw a piece of my mother in him, too. Her faith, her warmth, passed through me and into him. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Her light still moves." A few weeks later, Sam and I found an empty hall in the south side. The walls were cracked, and the floor was rough. But I saw hope there. I saw space for dreams. We gathered a small team. We cleaned together. We painted the walls bright yellow. We fixed the broken doors. Neighbors came to watch. Some offered old chairs, some gave paint, and some brought warm bread to share. The first day the doors opened, 5 children came. They looked unsure, But I welcomed them with open arms. I showed them the books, the toys, the safe corners to rest. They smiled after a while. Every day more children arrived. Some were hungry, some were sad, some carried heavy pain. But in that hall, they found soft voices, kind eyes, and warm hands. One boy, Mateo, loved numbers. He solved puzzles faster than anyone. I told him, "Your mind is a gift." He laughed for the first time in a long while. At night, I stood outside the new center and looked up at the stars. I felt my mother close to me, like she was proud again. I whispered, "We did it, Mom. More light grows." Months passed, and the center stayed full. Children laughed, learned, and played. We started small classes to help them read, to help them dream, to give them skills. Sam ran the math group. Clara, who once cleaned floors with me, came to teach art. She showed them how to paint bright worlds. One day, a reporter came to see our place. She took photos of the yellow walls, the children's drawings, and the shelves of books. She asked me, "Why do you do this?" I answered softly, "Because someone once believed in me. Now, I give that same belief to them." Her story was printed in the city paper. More people wanted to help. They sent clothes, food, even money for new desks. A builder came and offered to fix the roof for free. I saw so much kindness. When winter came, the center stayed warm with light and music. We cooked soup for anyone who was cold. We shared simple songs, and children danced in their socks. I stood by the door, watching their joy, and felt my heart so full it almost hurt. One evening, after everyone went home, I stayed behind and swept the floor like old times. I felt tears in my eyes, but they were happy tears. I thought of my mother again. I could almost hear her say, "You kept going, my son. You turned pain into hope." I took out my small blue book and wrote one last line. "We are here. We will stay. We will grow." I closed the book, turned off the lights, and stepped outside. The night was cold, but I felt warm. I knew tomorrow more children would come. I would greet them, show them the way, and remind them that they matter. And in that moment, under the quiet stars, I felt at peace. I had found my purpose. I had given back what was given to me. That was enough. That was my true happy ending. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. And remember, you can help light the way for others too. Like, comment, and subscribe to keep these voices alive and strong.